What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Cutlass Board Games channel, and we're talking about Blood on the Clocktower yet again today because something interesting happened and it's proving a little bit more of a trend from the development team, and I think it's something worth talking about. That is, we received an update to one of the characters today. We received an optional rule to the Poppy Grower. Now, I want to talk about optional rules, jinxes, clashes, and character updates. Now, if Blood on the Clocktower was a video game, giving patch notes and changing things is usually good for games, keeping things fresh and updating things, removing problems and stuff as you learn and grow as a designer is usually a good thing. However, board games much less have this luxury usually when you ship a product and it's on the shelf of the people that bought it. If you said, oh, by the way, we've changed this thing now, that can adversely affect the product. Now, for some things, it's probably fine, and a lot of the time, what Clocktower does is probably okay, because if you are printing out your custom scripts, you're using the online tool anyway, and that is supposed to process all of that information. But I want to kind of dig into what is annoying for me about these different things, because we have a couple of optional rules, and from recent memory, I can only think of two, including the Poppy Grower that we got today. The other one is the Wraith. Now, according to Stephen Medway's Instagram post, I believe, it was just posted in the group chat, where we organize all our Clocktower games, is where the Poppy Grower optional rule came from, so I'll go through it. Basically, if the Poppy Grower is drunk, poisoned, or leaves play, minions and demons learn who each other are that night. Now, that also removes the Poppy Grower Cannibal Jinx. Now, this optional rule solves a problem, but it also kind of does not, and I kind of want to get into that. There's like a whole developer catering to the needs of the complainers issue here, where anything that people could complain about the game, you can just optional rule it. Go, yeah, it's an optional rule. Who cares? Do whatever the fuck you like. But that just adds so much cognitive load to the players to remember what version of what character are we playing. And now I want to have a look at the script. Let me just quickly have a look and see if the Poppy Grower additional rule is here. Or the Wraith additional rule is here. No. So how am I supposed to remember what it is? And already, the Jinxes tab doesn't show up unless if your thing is fully pulled out. And there's people that don't know that. And if you already kind of know what the characters do, you just really need a reminder of what the names are. And then having to always pull it out, just be like, hey, that's the one that has the Jinx or whatever, is like additionally confusing. And then having like a whole nother section, which is like, this is the list of optional rules that you've opted into or something. Like in script creation is supposed to be like, tick yes, I'm using this optional rule. And then it pastes it on the bottom. Like, what exactly is going on here? And that's kind of what the problem was. Back when I first started playing, the game was not released yet and it was in playtesting. And what would happen was, that's sort of where Jinxes came about to be, and that's where Clashes came about to be. Clashes is not a thing that you hear about anymore, because they're kind of replaced with Jinxes. And what Clashes were originally was these two characters can't go on a script together, because basically even if one of them is not in play, people claiming to be that character adversely affects the game. And you probably won't see clashes anymore because some of the characters that did have like really bad clashes are just not released. And I know some of the characters that I really fucking hate that haven't been released yet will probably never be released because of this reason, unless if they are drastically changed to not so terribly interact with some of the other characters. And I'm not going to go into great detail because TPI have complained to me before about saying things I'm not supposed to say. I've never signed an NDA, I'm just being polite here. Now, with that kind of problem wanting to be solved, they don't want any kind of clashes in the game. And for it to be stable or whatever, there isn't any. And so they've created Jinxes. And going from having clashes, which is just don't play these characters together, to what we have, which is Jinxes, which is like, here's a nice way of fixing the problem, and you don't have to worry about it anymore, is probably fine. And for the most people going like, yes, this covers an awkward corner case where these characters interact. And like Ogre and Recluse is a good example. If the Recluse registers as evil to the Ogre learns that they are evil. Or you could just have the Recluse always registers as good to the Ogre, or something like that. Having a single explanation for a corner case where, if you choose to do this shitty thing, this is what the result should be, so that players can understand how corner cases are supposed to be resolved. Because there's a lot of corner cases in this game, and stuff like that can happen. It's not a big deal. Now, when you're starting to get into more complicated stuff, and it goes, here is a corner case, you can choose how you want to solve it. Here's my suggestion, but you can choose to use it or not. Just basically says, fuck you, do your own homebrew rule, what does it matter? And especially when it's not on the script. And if people have been home ruling it to solve it a certain way, what's the point on TPI coming out and saying this is how it should be done? It's not officially changing the character anyway, you can just refuse to use it. And compared to other homebrew rules that we have heard people use very, very commonly in the community, I'm talking about the Snake Charmer. Where's that as the optional rule? Where's that, awkward character interaction corner case that needs to be solved in the rules of the game? And this is kind of where some of my frustration is building, is that the game was released in a state. Regardless of how good or bad you think that state was, that's how the game was released. And since then, we've had a bunch of new characters added. That's great. That is a good way to keep the community excited about your game. And then slowly now we're seeing backpedaling kind of starting to happen. And I think the Wraith is actually a good example, because they go, here is the Wraith. Now, I played the Wraith when it was in playtesting. And I, for a very, very long time, was trying to avoid kind of spoiling the Wraith, because I think it's a fantastic character. And then what they released was like a watered down version of the character. But they added an optional rule where you could play the not watered down version of it, which is a bit strange, because the thing that they removed, the if players are mad at you, there is a downside, was the best part of the character, in my opinion. So it was really strange to be like, you can still do that. If you remember the old one, you can still play the old one, that's fine. And then so you like are branching off what the game is, right? So there's like two different versions of this character existing at the same time, and every single time someone's going to have to ask, what version of this character are we playing? What version of this is happening? And the best way to do it, I think, is just to literally have where it says the Wraith, like just the optional rule is included if you've opted in or whatever, so that when you look at and read the Wraith text, it's added to the Wraith text. And maybe it's highlighted in such a way so you understand that that is the optional rule that's included. But for the Wraith, I understand, because it's an added extra thing as to how the character plays. The Poppy Grower optional rule is covering for a corner case problem in when the Poppy Grower is removed. And that's kind of the thing that I think is a bit more of a problem. And now specifically it says, if the Poppy Grower becomes drunk, poisoned, or leaves play. Not drunk, poisoned, then leaves play. Leaves play, just if ever the Poppy Grower's effect is not active, it's the minions and demons learn who they are. So why isn't the Poppy Grower just released again? Why isn't the Poppy Grower character's text just changed? So instead that it reads, minions and demons do not know each other. If you die or are drunk or are poisoned, they learn who each other are that night. Is that so hard? Why did that have to be an optional rule and not just a character change? Well, spinning back, if people have a printed token of the Poppy Grower that has the the effect text on it from the Kickstarter expansion, and their character changes, their token now reads something incorrect. Now, which of the two scenarios is more confusing? The Poppy Grower, where you now have to remember a floating optional rule that maybe doesn't exist, maybe does exist, and then if you, as the Poppy Grower, die, you go, what actually happens to me? And your token is correct. Or your token is slightly incorrect, but the character sheet says the right thing. And the character token that you only look at for 15 seconds when you receive your character, and then you give it back to the storyteller. and the character sheet that you look at for the full hour and a half of when you're playing the game. So I think I'm reasonably confused as to how things are going. New characters are being released. That's great. Old characters changing, I think, makes sense if there's issues or there's corner cases. And the Jinx system is a really easy way to keep it updated and have it happening. Changing the exact text of a character and how it's supposed to operate is a little awkward, but is sometimes necessary. Adding optional rules is so far proving to be very clunky because we don't have any visibility on what it is. And even if we do, why not just release 2 versions of the character? Like Poppy Girl Beginner, Poppy Girl Advanced, Wraith Beginner, Wraith Advanced, or some shit like that, that makes it easier to split the difference between the two. Or just, if it's verging on a wholly different territory, and make it a completely different character. So I think the game is becoming more complicated unnecessarily because there's too many things players have to worry about. Back in my day, when clashes existed, a clash would show up while you are making a script, and then you would go, I can't play those characters together. Now, when a Jinx shows up on the script, you're like, here's just an extra thing I have to remember when the character is being played. And going from that original thing of there's no extra notes, there's no optional rules, there's no characters that are changed, there's no funky interactions, we just fucking run the bit and it's fine, is very different from now where it's like, okay, I've got my character sheet, I've got my bonus extra notes, I've got all this other shit that I have to remember, and also I'm taking Savant information every single day. It seems like it's becoming more and more clunky. And look, we're playing on the online version, which is basically holding your hand the entire time. This has got to be way more confusing in person when you don't have these kind of guardrails. You don't have access to just be able to instantly click on the wiki and look at what's changed about the character at any time. So, I don't know, this is my kind of frustration with what's happening. I'm hoping that maybe as things come along, we are going to get these kind of problems solved, but like, if no one ever says anything about how awkward and silly this kind of stuff is, then how would they ever know, right? And then we're supposed to have the new base 3 come out soon, so it's interesting to see if we're going to have like here's the Wraith with the new base 3, and it's specifically this optional version, or it's not supposed to be the optional version, or whatever. Who knows? I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens. I'm verging on becoming more frustrated with how things are coming, because there's not, like, if I wasn't, I'm not following Stephen Medway on Instagram, how am I supposed to know about the change to the Poppy Girl? When I opened the app to record this video, I wasn't notified about it. I actually have never seen or heard anything about the Wraith firsthand. I've only been told secondhand about the optional Wraith ability, and I'm like, oh, great, because I already knew what the Wraith did before it was released. And then they released a different character and called it the Wraith, and then put the second half of it in hidden text somewhere. So, I don't know. Hopefully this is giving you, the viewer, some idea about how the future of Clocktower might be looking like, and how much more complicated and hard it is going to be to maintain a physical copy, and how different maybe playing online might be. And look, if you're frustrated, you're confused, or you think I'm just way off base, let me know in the comments, because I'm curious to see what the average person's sentiment with a live service board game is, because this is not a very common thing that we see. Like, usually if there's something changed or there's a mistake about a released product, they will send out to all of the backers replacement parts. They will go, this card was a misprint and we're giving you a new one, and that will fix your copy of the game. I'm not expecting to receive a new Poppy Girl token, so I don't know. What is going to happen? What is the fix? Is this the new route that they're going along, where you just have to follow the Instagram to learn what the game is supposed to be? Or are you going to follow your favorite YouTuber and click the subscribe button, and he's going to angrily tell you that something has changed because you didn't know about it? Let's find out.